of presence, where you are or anybody is. I think leadership really is extraordinary, isn't it? It doesn't really ever get more deeper, more involved, more involvement that exists than where somebody really in their leadership style, they've got more of a perfect detachment. It means actually that you've really got to get more deeper involved in anything that you do. Because you can't so much be attached to an outcome, and because of it, then you're really more deeply involved, in the mission where somebody is, and a mission which really has a heart's path, a path with a heart. So anybody can look and see and examine something quick and easy. They could see unity consciousness, or they could see, frozen logos. The Path of Hollow Bones is really great for people to look into, to read a little more about this. But eye awareness really is where somebody's really more surrendered to control, where such is sort of an inner felt, elusive type of outcome. Yet, it's interesting because, you and I and everybody really is living in more of a fast-paced, chaotic world. And no one wants to ever have got taken over, but you could see how all that is, where somebody can be swept up, for instance, by being love blind or something, and how power could have been given away where somebody was attached. And attachment really is where somebody likes and they want, or they've got some fixed idea, and then it sort of really can not necessarily be as social as what one would or should be, of course, winning friends and influencing people. So in leadership, it really is the desire, or which is to have cleared away wrongful fear, and to not be where desire is, but yet to have taken time more to be in a study more of eye awareness, where I is sort of empty and absolute, and am is simply caring, and that's something which one can know, and everything else, maybe it's not as important for somebody to know anything else. Of course, knowing isn't necessary because somebody really can have a great intuitive sense of everything, and a compelling attractiveness where someone is and who's really got good charm. It's something which inspires more devotedness and lovableness, of course, which is something more divine. And, this is sort of real power, isn't it? And so detachment, for those listening in on eye awareness really is about your emptiness, as stellar as space is, and am is the body, and simple care, meaning a matter, what's the matter. And after that, that's all that's needed. Somebody's got their mindlessness to be in the moment more versus, not really being associated to the present like one can be. When anybody looks at any issue, they could look at it more where affection is now, because they're on a heart's path. The heart is going to guide the tongue ever more. So detachment, perfect detachment more is a virtue, which really is the highest virtue, about which several beatitudes exist, like love or humbleness, let's say. But perfect detachment is the most godlike virtue relative. And so naturally, this is something bestowed within ourselves naturally, you see, and doesn't have to be like, it's just like water finding its own level, where somebody's cleared away what isn't you. And so, where we would look into this work, and others who are experts in the area as well, CBCOWA is sort of an acronym. It just stands for a Criminal Banking Cartel of a One World Order. It's the only, such a system really has only survived because there's been an ongoing fueling of many wars to have kept the coffers filled for that system, which none of us selected at all. And today it's called Tavistock, of course, a post-traumatic stress disorder where somebody's really been inducted under the big Nick, you see, agenda. And that's a banker's matrix as a world, but not this world like what we're talking about. So somebody's just visiting, aren't they, and looking at things which is irregular, about to correct the things which is irregular. But the world is really full of, like, what, if you look into this book, what's called a surrogate. I mean, in other words, the government becomes a womb for people to jump into, and all sorts of groups might as well, or body politics, and not the real thing, like a surrogate spousal relation. And government can't take over the role of a father or your mother, let's say. But someone who grew up and they had only influenceness was a surrogate spousal relation, and passed on to the government, passed on to all the media and things, modelling various things of having unnecessary fear and attachment. And that unnecessary fear and attachment sort of really comes to be sensed as people can feel not so social about that. And so abandonment then comes along, and that's really rife. And so the fear of abandonment and distrustedness, and one could see all of that going on, domestic and international affair. If you raise a healthy child, you can raise a healthy village, you can raise a healthy nation. And it's a policy really where government should be, is, of course, that departments could have been just weaponized, couldn't they? And would anybody suppose that something could have occurred like that? Only someone who has the power or a group that could have, would have, but otherwise, how could it be? It's just not necessarily inside anyone's consciousness that something could be going on like that. But we, the people, really have been put upon by governments being weaponized around the globe, and that goes on and has been right from the get-go until that stopped, of course. And yet, you know, it all's done from the BC and social security bonds and things, fraud by common law trespass and legal name fraud, and by you and I not having a real true ID that where title is protected and upheld, and you're only having a title as an occupation, like a drive hall, for instance, and that's an occupation. It's not your ID. You're not a commercial drive hall, you see. So the DMV and these never was to have stopped someone from being able to go from point A to B as a travel hall, and being in your own vehicle, which that's not a job which you've got where the government is, and you're something commercial, which is an occupation as a drive hall. So, yeah, just putting everybody under a capacity of being a drive hall so that they would have a bridged right. And these are sorts of things which has gone on to just to control people, and then you can see a lot of overreach because where you have enforcement, you see recruitment, don't you? And where friendly recruitment is, lots of people want to join into that, but when you've got just a SWAT vehicle, ripping into a neighbourhood with guns drawn and what have you, and doors busted down and what have you, you're not going to get too many people wanting to jump into that. But then you're only going to get a certain type of person, aren't you? So it's sort of like an advertising, isn't it? And you can see wherever you've got positive experiences of consistency, where parenting is or government, but otherwise you've got the negative experience, and you've got a great deep inconsistency, haven't you, that we could look at and see, and that could be corrected. And where's the fifth estate that does this? That's what we're talking about, is to be activated. And so where it isn't and has been, you've really got caused unnecessary anxiety. You've got a real deeper anxiousness of attachment, where people are. You've got a lot of observed sort of disorganized types of attachment, almost, and characterized, like you could see in the media and story and things, and what people can say, but basically a hypersensitivity often to anxiety and avoiding any proper relation with some person. And so it's really a domestic affair that plays out where any international arena is, and all is really controlled in the moment by C.B. Cower, being underneath C.B. Cower, where you've got really not proper faith, which we should have, and this is the real estate, is the fourth estate, of course, which is above the corpse, and it's correcting what needs, where government transgressions can be seen and help protect people. And so all this is really a reason, you and I, where we could acquire more eye awareness, and we could be ridding what's unnecessary fear, like a lot of the work where you read the eye awareness book and the work on verifying your map, for instance, that's on Amazon at the moment. Okay. And then other articles that anybody could go to. And the work, you're basically really, in eye awareness, you're really developing a state of being, which is not a state of mind, but a state of being, which is more perfect detachment. It's an ongoing, outward lived sitting, walking meditation, not turned on or off, for instance, at some time or space. But a great tenant, of course, like what we've been talking about just in this show, really is a work which is allowing you or I or anybody to recognise and have a great capacity to be able to isolate and clear away any internal chatter, that goes on. So you're quietening things down so somebody can really feel sort of how relaxed your shoulders are, and how relaxed your tummy is, for instance, and how quiet the breath is, and these things, which are going to give you more longer life and be more fully functional. Anyway, to grow really in perfect detachment rather than growing in detachedness from desire where things are, and unnecessary fear, which is a hell of a lot of. One could really find more ways to be fulfilled when you don't have all of that. Suddenly you've got room, and it sort of behooves you to look to where need would have been and have turned whatever that was into something which is more of a perfect detachment within yourself. It's like the grist becomes the substance, which ends up like carbon being a diamond versus just remaining as graphene, let's say. So you're really learning in eye awareness more how important this really room is inside, and having this empty space and simply being an am, which is caring, that's all. And after that, one's in the moment, and you can be responsive, you could be receptive, you could easily be able to point out the other point of view, and where does that other point of view come from, or any view come from, because you've got a sense of a referential index and a balance about this, both internal and external, as well as your orientation, internal and external. And so this is sort of describing somebody who's really more in balance, and it's more living more in perfect detachment as a virtue. And so if you look where things are compelling, and there's attractiveness to a sense of charm and an inspiration, people are inspired more and devoted, it's really more things that divinely conferred, isn't it? And power is very much like this, isn't it, mate? And talent. And it's really one's personal magic and their touch, where leadership is, where people look on and they can see a great magnetic charm and appeal, and it's divinely really inspired. I mean, it's how many times you've got knocked down, or me or someone, but how quick and smart you are to be stood right back up again. That's what I thought was very remarkable when I first saw you, was how unbelievable it was for you to just stand straight back up like, man. And some people, they could be a bit more excited or just be empty, where situational specific could be more stressed for most, but remaining empty and cool, more in the moment. One really has a greater play on strength where you are versus where somebody can have not looked at where weakness is, where one should, but personally and privately, individually, and clears away those things. So social circumstance really is like driving everything more toward you for whatever is your outcome versus some personal weakness that would have been pervasive, just stubbornly not really dealt with because someone really didn't have a teacher or they weren't following some path. And so the biggest condition that a lot of people have is called anosognosia, which means kind of you really don't even know what the circumstance is of the condition, and that's the biggest condition probably. It's called anosognosia. But confidence and optimism, being optimistic, looks mostly things could work out, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's better that somebody could be very more with confidence and optimism because it's really what's influential where someone is, and natural it is. You're applying things more from common sense, from common understanding, and it's really a master class in being able to clear up disinformation, and that's a lot what this work is about for people that's interested in this. Wow. Anyway, I guess to cap just a bit of what we said, and if it's okay, I can. I've got to deal with something just for just a little bit of a moment in time, and then I can call you back again, and we can like in 10 minutes, I think I might need just all. I mean, I can call you back and we can talk a bit more about maybe another topic or something. But just to recap, I think most people could really say that negative experiences where something was really inconsistent in governance or things that are supposed to be going on, or parenting, really couldn't cause unnecessary anxiety and cause them anxious types of attachedness to various things in life, pervasive and not dealt with, and I've observed really disorganized types of attachment and a hypersensitivity to various things having been installed more. And so what happened there to faith, honour and trust, which is what happens when you're raised as a child and you're told basically people are good. So then you're looking at everything differently, and that's the presence, I'd say, in leadership, which is really extraordinary. It's one's really deeper involvement because you're more perfectly attached, and because of it to the outcome, you really have got to be more deeper involved and more fully, totally involved and absorb more where an outcome is. But soft, you keep an eye over things, and something happens of itself because it's just nature that causes that to be. Yeah. So anyway, let me give you a call back, mate. I'll give me 10 minutes and I'll call you right back.
Okay.
Love you, mate. Check this out. Okay, I'll be good.